you. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Pleased to meet you all. To give you guys a little introduction, I work for DPG Media. DPG Media, that's a media company located, the headquarters are in Belgium. You see the building I'm in actually at the moment. But the company itself is active in Belgium, Netherlands, and Denmark. Today I'll be focusing on what we're doing in Belgium. It's a company doing by now not only TV and radio. We operate about 7 channels. We also have a share in RTL Belgium, so the French-speaking part of Belgium. We operate 3 national radio channels with DAB and streaming spin-offs, and also a lot of print brands, newspapers, magazines, and their online counterparts. To put it shortly, we are the biggest news brand in Belgium, and one of the biggest brands in there we have is called HLN, Het Laatste Nieuws, the latest news. About 3 years ago, that is, they decided let's also focus big on video. So these newspapers and their online counterparts started focusing on video. And one of the things they created and that came out of it is what we call HLN Live. It's basically an online 24/7 news channel, and it looks like this. So this is live output of our 24/7 news channel. So yeah, okay, apparently a zebra escaped from a zoo in Seoul in Korea. It's apparently newsworthy to our readers, but hey, it's what they put out every day, 24/7. It has all the bells and whistles you expect from like a 24/7 news channel, ticker tape, clock, graphics, pre-recorded clips they have in a loop, but they can also put out live sources coming from journalists and also from a studio, because next to this 24/7 news channel, we also operate our own studio here in Antwerp, in which they can create content for that channel. To summarize a bit about that HLN Live, in 2020, so that's 3 years ago by now, we reached 10 million, we had 10 million page views a day. That's almost out of 3 people in Flanders, the Flemish-speaking part of Belgium, we reach every day. And that's continuously growing. To make that happen, we did make the choice, we can support them 24/7. So we made sure these journalists can do that all by themselves. So we made sure, and we are making sure, and every day again, they prove they can do it. We have a 24/7 news channel, fully operated only by journalists. No technical crew is supporting them. And also that studio, you just saw a screenshot of, it looks like this, is also fully operated by journalists. We don't have any technical crew present. That means we had to provide them with technology to do that master control, the final playout thing happening, like you saw the output just. And also build them a studio that's fully automated, so they can create content in it with all the production value you come to expect from a classic TV company now producing the same typical content for online. So that master control stuff, they had to be able to create a playlist with clips and live sources, add graphics to that, like tickers, bugs, teasers. And that studio had to be capable of a host, an anchor. That anchor should be able to play out clips, switch to live sources like press conferences or live journalists on location, or bringing remote guests via Google Meet or QuickLink. And also do crosstalks with remote journalists coming in from our master control room via all the typical stuff they have available there, WMT for mobile viewpoint, live view, satellite connections, whatever they have, they can use it in that studio. They also can use all the in-house resources we have available for also the TV news, like Avid for editing, Cloud UX to browse clips and to find clips coming in from the master control room. So whenever something comes in, they can use it. How do we do that? Because basically, during the day, we have 3 journalists operating this. And like we used to call it, it's basically really 3 journalists and a space bar. That's all you need to do that. Let's dive in. So, like I said, it's a 24/7 news channel, fully operated by journalists. Okay, so fully operated by journalists. These journalists are in charge. They make the playlist, they edit the clips, they do everything by themselves. For the first part, that master control room stuff, we use a tool from a company in Germany called Quest, and they also have an online counterpart, Kip. And one of their products is Makalu. That's a playout system to do master control room playout. It's fully browser-based, so the user interface you see here is running in a Chrome browser. You can operate it from anywhere you want, at home, at the office, doesn't matter. Just to open the web browser, type in the address, log in, and you are in control of your playout. It looks like this. We once said, okay, if a journalist can operate and use Adobe Premiere, he can use Makalu, and that proved to be true. They use it for over 2 years now. We launched it in March 2021, mid-corona, everyone working from home, and we launched that one. We have 2 channels available in that thing, one for the main HLN Live channel and one for themed output, like in the summer when there's a lot of sports content, we spin up a second channel. It's working and running in Amazon, and it's a SaaS model, so we rent it from that company, Kip, paid monthly, and yeah, basically, yeah, couldn't be easier. Then we get to our studio. Behind the scenes, we have a lot of products running there. Vmix, Tinkerlist, Singular for the graphics. Onhertz, also a Belgian startup for their Artisto audio engine. And let's start with that one. We wanted, of course, these journalists, they are non-technical people, and one of the most difficult things to do in a TV operation, studio operation, is the audio part. So what we wanted to do was, of course, fully automate that audio part. But how do you keep levels under control? How do you know which microphones to open? Also check the levels. We needed the information from microphones, so we needed to know who is talking in that studio to make an automatic director work. So an automatic director should know, okay, person 1 is talking, so I have to cut a camera to that guy, and now the anchor is talking, so I have to switch to the anchor. Also the same thing, that's all the needs we had, and Onhertz Artisto provided that. It's basically, like you could see from the screenshots, you build your audio engine exactly the way you want. It's a bunch of blocks, levelers, mixers, processing blocks to do EQ, compression, everything you need in an audio engine, an audio desk. You can build it in a software browser, and it runs as a software application on your computer. Can take any audio device you want. In our case, we use Ravenna audio streams that are coming into it. And one of the things we wanted to achieve was that it sounded as if it was an actual audio engineer doing the mixing. And you can do that, basically. It's fully controlled through their API, so none of the users ever see anything about Artisto working. I'll show later how you influence it from Tinkerlist, but it fades up audio whenever it needs to. It levels automatically, like a journalist on location. It has a camera crew. He has a camera crew with him. They have a handheld microphone. The camera is on auto gain control, so you're not sure what level will that microphone be. Artisto, to name one part, they have an automatic leveler based on loudness technology. So you tell it, okay, that microphone coming in should be minus 23 dB LUFS, and it takes care of that. Now we want our anchor to talk over that feed coming in. So we want that audio level to be minus 38 LUFS. Okay, Artisto will take care of that. And that happens behind the scenes for them without any human intervention and just by clicking some stuff. I'll show you later how they do that. Other part behind the scenes is vMix. We use vMix, 700 euros license. Nothing more than that. That plus a really beefy computer with a lot of GPU power. We have 5 cameras on that set, PTZ cameras from Panasonic. We feed them as SDI sources to vMix. On the other side, we have our master control room bringing all kinds of live sources. They send us 4 NDI sources to vMix. Then we have some internal clip layers in vMix, and then we have all kinds of layering and split screens present in vMix. So put it together, we come up with almost 50 different inputs present in vMix. So when you look at the screenshot, on top you see the actual physical inputs, and everything below is layered variants of that same inputs, or these same inputs to make it work exactly the way our creative department wants it to look like. So the split screens, how they do the overlays, that's all in there. Then you come to Tinkerlist. That's now we're coming to the good part. Tinkerlist is, if you don't know it, you can call it a newsroom control system. It's not exactly that, but it does a lot of these things. In the end, it's a rundown builder on one part, and on the other part, they have a playout tool they call Tinker Queues. The same thing goes here. Absolutely no technicalities there. Our anchor journalists, they build the rundown exactly like they want it, and then they take it to the studio and they run it just with a space bar. On the right side, and I'll show you live later how it really works, you see some templates. We have several of them available, like we have an anchor solo. So that's a template they can put in their rundown where we know only the journalist, only the anchor will be shown on screen. Then they can have another card present in their rundown, anchor with guests. And to put it simple, like you might see on the card, they just have to fill in names. So in an anchor with guest cards, they know they have 2 places available in our studio. We call them seat 1 and seat 2. And if they fill in a name and a function, that's all they have to do. When they run that card in the studio, only the fact that they filled in a name means we will open the microphone on the audio mixer. If they don't fill in a name, like in this case on seat 2, we will not open the microphone for that seat 2. So audio mixing is starting to work just by filling in a name in a rundown. That's how it works. The same information, like the name and the function, will also be used to put on lower third, of course, when that person gets shown on air. And then the beauty of the system begins to work because we have an automation behind the scenes that takes care of every directing logic you can imagine with a TV show. So when we put that lower third for that person on air, we do only that when we know that that person is on air in a close-up shot, not in a wide shot, not in a 2-shot. Only when he's in a close-up, we show his name. And maybe he stopped talking while we're showing that lower third, but we know the lower third remains on there for 5 seconds, so we won't cut away. So lower third is on. We keep that camera on air until the lower third is gone. Everything a TV director would do is in there too, all taken care of by Tinkerlist. That rundown looks a bit like this. It's a pretty long list. Most of the times their rundowns are shorter, but in this way they do. Depends on how much news there is each day, but on an average day they do 5 to 10 rundowns a day between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. But we had peak days when there was a lot of news. They did 20 to 25 of these rundowns a day, just by themselves. If you want to, let's try and show you how it really works. So build a rundown from scratch. Let's switch to that. Okay, that's a computer they have available in their studio. So I'll, on the other hand, I have to show you the actual output. Just log in. I should have logged in before, of course. So this is Tinkerlist, the part where you build your rundowns. So this is an actual one they have available. It opens on the right and you can see, okay, I'm really texting my laptop here, but this is a rundown they just built. They will be using it today. They have an opener card that will take care of the opening credits to play. And we have enabled auto cutting. So the auto director behind the scenes will do all the actual cutting. Split screens, when they have guests in the studio, will take care of that. They can switch it off if they want an actual technician to do the cutting for them, but we never switch it off. They just use it like this. Then they have an anchor solo in which he put in some stuff, what he wants to talk about. He will launch a photo that will appear on the screens behind him. Behind him, there are 10 Samsung screens, 100-inch each, with a VSRT engine behind it that gets triggered from Tinkerlist. Then he will switch to a live journalist. Like I said before, the journalist will be Julie Colpaert. She is a journalist for VTM News, so that's her function. And she will be located in Paris. He just fills in these three things, and he fills in, it will come in through what we call live one. He has 4 live sources available from our master control room. He just asks our master control room guys, okay, on what channel will you deliver that live feed? And they tell him, okay, it will be on live one. Okay, that's it. We'll also be playing a clip within that live intervention. That clip gets uploaded just from the web browser, because everything you see is a web browser. He just uploads the MP4 clip he exported from CloudUX, goes into the playlist. And by setting that check mark, he knows when the clip ends, I will go back to the studio, meaning in this case, I will go back to that crosstalk with Julie Colpaert. After that, he will do an anchor solo stuff to just say, okay, thanks, this was the end of the show. And that's the end. So you see, this is basically how they build a rundown. This is an actual rundown they built, and then they can step into the studio and run it. So this is called Opnieuw Rellen in Parijs. If you want to, I will just run that thing. I'll show you this with an NDI output from it. They just go to search, okay, here you have it, Opnieuw Rellen in Parijs met JCO Julie Colpaert. Just click on it. We have a main and a backup vMix system behind the scenes. So if one of both fails, he just says, okay, I just load it on a backup machine and I go ahead. So even when one of the two systems fails, they can still go live. So load the rundown, there it is. You just trigger the opener to prepare it. And now all I'm be using is my spacebar. So nothing else but a spacebar. Opening credits are started. We cut to the camera. Then we cut to the anchor solo part. So only the microphone of the anchor will be open. No other microphones will be open. Now the next spacebar, I will cut to that photo scherm thing. You will see that we cut to a wide shot because our creative department wanted us to show the images in the screens behind him showing up. So let's do that. There we go. Photo comes up and we cut back to the same camera as before, but that has reframed to a wider shot. It's difficult to see now because you don't see the anchor standing there, but they wanted now the shot to be a bit wider so you really see that picture behind him. So that happened too behind the scenes now. Then we cut to our live journalist, Julie Kolpaert, over there. She will be coming in from a live view, apparently. So the system works now like this. When the anchor in the studio is not talking, we give that remote journalist full screen and we show her graphics, like she's in Paris. You know, they filled in Paris as location. And you saw also appearing Julie Kolpaert, journalist VTM Nieuws. It just comes up automatically. No one is doing anything. When that anchor starts talking, we make it a split screen. So we make it a two-shot, two-box effect with journalist on one side and the reporter, our anchor on the other side. I have no microphone open at the moment, so you don't see that appearing, but it's basically whoever is talking is shown on air. Next spacebar is we will be showing that clip. That clip, it has a parameter off, OFF. That's like we used to call a video while the microphones remain open, so the journalist and anchor can still be talking over it, and we show the clip as illustration. When they said that clip was SON, sound on machine, that's another terminology we use, we mute our microphones and the clip is played at -23 LUFS, but now that clip is played at -38 LUFS. So with one spacebar, we trigger stuff on Artisto, the audio engine, and we trigger stuff on vMix. You saw the clip ending. It goes back to, because we said it should go back to studio, so it goes back to that journalist, live journalist situation. Next spacebar will take him to anchor solo. Let's do that. Just do the spacebar. Microphone and all sound from that live source is muted now. We are now at the anchor solo stuff, so journalists can still say, okay, thanks for watching. See more on HLN Live and VTM Nieuws later on today. And that's the end of the show. We mute the microphones, so no unwanted sayings can go out again. And the other journalist operating Makalu, the master control room, takes over again and starts whatever clip they have lined up in Makalu. So that's basically it. That's how we operate a 24/7 news channel and a studio with only 3 journalists each day and a spacebar. I'm open for questions, remarks.
Thank you, Jan. Very interesting. Let's see if there is any question in the chat. No? Any questions?
I have one question, if it's okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Tell me a little about this non-technical staff environment. Where do you need technicians?
Sorry, where do you need technicians? Or
yeah, you have a computer breakdown, so you have network issues, and so what do you do?
Well, that's the like you say, in IT environments, the first line support, second line support. Basically, the journalists, they are capable of doing some sort of first line support, so they know what to do when basic stuff doesn't work. So yeah, basically when they see, okay, my stuff on the main machine doesn't work, I switch to the backup machine. Also, that part is fully automated because in our data center 60 kilometers away, we have an SDI switcher, and that vMix outputs SDI. Both machines output SDI, but we finally deliver one of both to the master control room to put on air. Also, that switching between the main and the backup vMix machine on it's a Sirius router, I think, is controlled from Tinkerlist. So basically, they are capable of doing a lot of that stuff themselves. If it fails, they have a support number they can call. Most of the time, they end up with me or with our master control people present in our master control room, and they know what to do when there's really a problem that keeps them from going to air. So there is support available on demand, on call, whenever they need it. But in the basic operation, there is no technician present. So they are all alone.
Just one more last question. When you hire new staff, a new journalist, how long does it take to get familiar with all this stuff?
That goes really, really fast because the journalists that operate that channel, they're really young people. They come fresh from school, or they have just 2-3 years experience, and most of the times they're really proficient in Adobe Premiere. And like I said, if you can use Adobe Premiere in a fairly decent fashion, you can use Makalu and you can use Tinkerlist and start producing content. And then you just have to know, okay, if I fill in this, that happens. Basically, 1-2 days explanation, and it's a train the trainer model. So I don't train them anymore. They train themselves. So they hire someone new. He gets into the HLN video team. I know there's a new guy because I have to put up to create accounts in Tinkerlist and other stuff. But after that, they train him themselves.
Thank you. Morten, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, but it was the same question about training, you know, how long does it interest? But I can see there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Yeah, we have one question from, I think from Hans, is asking why NDI and not ST2110?
Because at the moment, the only 2110 implementation we have in our company is for the big VTM news environment. And that's fully, basically closed off Lavo vMatrix environment. One of the reasons, we use vMix. vMix is not so easy to use 2110 in there, and we don't see any reason why we would be using in such an environment 2110. NDI can really exist next to 2110. We're now in the process of rebuilding our master control room that will be 2110 mixed with NDI and still some SDI present. So NDI is just easier to use, easier to deploy, easier to maintain, and easier to work in such environments. The fact I can show you the output of that set is only possible using an NDI environment. It would be really hard to do that with 2110.
Thank you, Jan. Answer, are there other questions from your side?
I think Christopher had a question here as well.
Yeah, there is another. How often do you have a problem error on air?
Well, technical errors, not so much. These vMix machines, like I said, we have a main and a backup, but they keep using the main machine because it keeps running for. I tried it before we get any real issues with that machine, and it only appeared after 1.5 months of continuous running. So we now reboot them every month. That's a task we give to our master control room and support people. Every month they reboot these machines. So not really we see technical errors on air. When there are errors, it's mostly human error. So they forgot. We try to keep it non-technical, as much as non-technical as possible, but when you forget a check mark, like to go back to the studio, it does what you want to do. You spacebar and it goes to the next thing. In the case you forget that check mark, it will go to the next card and not go back to the studio. That's one mistake I've seen happening. Or they just spacebar too early. Sometimes they let anchors use that sets that are not so it's not a daily routine for them, and they spacebar too early or too late, and then you see some errors on air, but most of the times it goes really smoothly.
Thank you. Christoph, if you open your mic, let's speak.
Yeah, I was just curious about these problems on air. Now, if you mentioned you have live source 1 from Paris in your example here. Now, what if the MCR has assigned it to live 2 instead because they forgot they had promised to put it on live 1? Do the anchors know how to handle it while they're on air? Can they handle such things while on air?
Well, we have a little. Maybe I should try to show that. I don't know if I scan it at the moment, but we have under their presenting camera another view for them called what we call the presenter view. I'll try to pull that up. It's output. Give me a second. No, it's not that one. Is it this one? No, sorry, I don't have that NDI source readily available. Basically, that's a view we built for them in which they see their own presenting camera, so they know they are framed correctly. They see the program output, so they know what they are sending out. And they have 3 live sources, the previews of them available. So they have the preview of the Google Meet. We also have as a source available. We have a preview of Live 1 and of Live 2, because most of the times they send stuff to us on Live 1 and 2, not Live 3 and 4. They are available, but often they don't use them. So they can see, oh shit, it's not on Live 1. I don't see Julie Colpart appearing on Live 1. I see her appearing on Live 2. And still in that stinker list, in the queues rundown even, they can change it. So they don't have to dive into the rundown builder tool, but in the queues, the spacebar playout application, they even can change, oh shit, it should be Live 2. They can change it and take it to where, and it is Live 2 in that case. So besides that, they are fully connected to our Riedel intercom, so they can talk over the intercom to the master control room to say, hey guys, I'm not on air at the moment. Please put it on Live 1 because I need it on Live 1. And the master control room can talk back into their ear to say, okay, it's done, my mistake.
Thank you. I see Morten.
You might answer it right here, my question, because it was just to ensure who is pressing that spacebar. Is that the person in front of the camera?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's what about Reza, the rolling news? But that was probably also what you're answering on as if doing a show, because those shows it looks very short. But if you stay on air for several hours, then will you what will you do when it's not planned? When you're sitting there in the studio and you have the live report and you want to go back and forth between a couple of live sources and so on.
Yeah, in that rundown you can go back and forth, so you don't have to. You can of course do spacebar and work it top down, but you can also jump back to a previous card. That's what, for example, with Jubileum, or how do you say it, of the British Queen when she was still alive. We had 2 journalists in the UK on 2 different locations with live views and WMTs. We had, of course, 2 international feeds coming in. So there's basically 4 cards in that rundown. And on some of these cards, a few clips. And basically that was it. And our anchor, Thomas, has been running a show for 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours, all by himself, with only a rundown of 4 of these cards and jumping back and forth between them.
Do you use the same setup for your primetime news show?
No, the big VTM news, that's iNews based, Mozart in control of the playout. So that's a whole different ballgame.
Why?
That's fully.
Why?
Well, VTM News was there before we started building this. So it's totally different technology branches. I must admit, we are now looking into disaster recovery scenarios. So because our VTM News studio is also here in Antwerp, but all the technology behind it is in our data center in Vilvoorde, 60 kilometers away. And okay, it's redundant with 2 different fiber paths. But yeah, it can happen. We can enter the building here because bomb alarm, terrorist, whatever reason, so we can't use it, and or even worse, our data center in Vilvoorde is down. So we can't do anything, not in Antwerp, not in Vilvoorde. So we're looking into disaster recovery, and the technologies we've built now are on the table to be used as a disaster recovery IDs. It's still thinking, work in progress, but we see a lot of potential also for the bigger news to start with disaster recovery.
Thank you. There is another question in the chat from Michael. Do you have a house format and how do you handle different file formats?
We do have a house format, so especially for the big the TV news, that's still MXF wrapper, XCM HD 42250 megabits. That's the file format we use there. For this set, it's a little bit different, but like I said, they can browse Cloud UX and use all that kind of stuff. And we have export profiles for them, exporting MP4 files, but always the same MP4 file. It's always the same bitrate, 1920, 1080, interlace still. So it's always the same file format that's coming out of Cloud UX for them, or they also have in their Adobe Premiere export profile. So if they just have some footage from a smartphone, put it on their Premiere timeline, they also always use the same export profile. So it always comes out the same MP4. On top of that, when you upload it to Tinkerlist, they also do some file conversion up there, and now we just get the original file back from them. We upload it, but if needed, I think these guys can still transcode your file and make sure it's always the same file format you get from them.
Thank you. Other questions? Jan. From Mike, BBC. Where can I watch the output from your channel? My colleagues would be interested to see this solution in action.
Okay, it's basically on, I'll type on this site. So that's the site of our newspaper, hln.be. I think it's not behind the paywall, but behind the login wall. So you will have to create an account, just email address and some stuff, and then you can watch it. So it's on there. You have to scroll a bit down. It's not up on top, unless really breaking news is happening. Then they put it on top, but there you can find it.
Thank you. Any other comments, question? Let me check the chat again. Not more
Really
than
good presentation, Jan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's interesting.
Very clear, yeah.
Yeah, and but of course, for some of us, it would be interesting also to see, you know, the timeline, the amount of, how it looks on here and so on. But really good. Thanks.
Yeah, well, make
Inspiring.
sure you create an account on hln.be
Yeah.
and then you can
Will
watch
do.
it.
That's
Will
nice.
do. I was just typing in right now.
I think I have some M3U8 HLS URL available somewhere, but I can try to send that to Paula, and then you don't have to log in.
Yeah, I can share with the members. Thank you, Jan.
Maybe one last question. When will you
Okay.
deploy a similar setup in Denmark?
I'm not so. I don't hear a lot from our colleagues from Denmark. I know they are there, but I don't know what's happening over there. But the Dutch people from AD, Algemeen Dagblad, that's the Dutch counterpart of HLN. They are building a similar studio. Technically, it will look different, but they have the same 24/7 channel already available, and are now building a studio based on the same technology in Rotterdam. So the same thing is happening in Holland at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know. Let's call. Any other questions? In the chat, comments like very interesting presentation. Thanks a lot. So
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, a big thank you also from my side, Jan and Aaron. So thank you for joining this webinar. I'm going to share the recording link and also the URL from Jan to the using the mailing list. So speak soon. Again, many thanks, Jan.
Thank you
Okay,
all.
it was my pleasure.
It was wonderful.
Nice to meet
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.